Apple didn't just let the iPhone 4S die off like they do with most of their old devices, they absolutely murdered it. But how and why did they do this? Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91Tech, and today we're asking this very question. But before we get started, I'll quickly mention that I did drop a video yesterday detailing what it's been like using the iPhone 4S in 2018, so if you're interested, there will be a link in the description below. But with that said, and without further ado, let's just get right into this. The iPhone 4S was released all the way back in 2011 and came with Apple's first dual-core processor, the A5 chip, as well as 512 megabytes of RAM. While this was pretty good 7 years ago, it isn't today, and this is pretty obvious when you use the 4S. It's really slow, or at least it's slow if you update it. And I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. What killed the iPhone 4S is iOS 9, and you probably saw that coming. And the 4S is not the only one that was killed by iOS 9. I would say the iPod 5, iPad 2, iPad 3, iPad mini, and any other device with an A5 chip also was pretty much annihilated with this software update. But for the purpose of this video, we are going to specifically focus on the 4S because it was the most popular of all of these devices. Okay, before I go much further, for those of you who still have the 4S or enjoy using the 4S or like the 4S or whatever, I'm not attacking you. I love the 4S. It's one of my favorite iPhones, and because of that, I really hate to see how Apple ended its legacy. You can't deny the 4S is slow. You just can't. It's not smooth on iOS 9. It's just not. It's terrible. And if you deny it, I mean, well, you're wrong. I'm sorry. The 4S compared to most phones on their last version of software is slow. Look at the iPhone 5 on iOS 10. It's not too bad. The 4S on iOS 9 is absolutely horrible, and I'll get a little bit more into that later. Sure, you can do a few things to help, like reduce motion and transparency, and you can jailbreak and speed up animations, but it's still not enough. Someone at Apple really should have said, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. Half a gigabyte of RAM is not enough for iOS 9. It just isn't. So again, I'm sorry if you don't like hearing this. If you have a 4S and it works for you, I'm glad. I'm really glad. I'm glad it works for you. But it could have worked a lot better for you if Apple hadn't killed it. And I mean, yeah, the 4S is a great phone on any version before iOS 9. It flew on iOS 5. It was just as fast on iOS 6. It definitely did slow down on iOS 7, but it was still pretty usable on iOS 7. It was fine from what I've used. I mean, I've used it quite a bit on iOS 7 because I have one. And on iOS 8, it was definitely starting to slow down, but it worked fine. It was fully functional. It was probably pretty similar to the iPhone 4 on iOS 7 or the iPhone 3GS on iOS 6. But as soon as it got that iOS 9 update, everything seemed to go south. It was just too much for the phone. So let's see why Apple even updated the 4S in the first place. The iPhone 3GS received iOS 3, iOS 4, 5, and 6. The iPhone 4 got iOS 4, 5, 6, and 7. The 4S got iOS 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Apple intentionally decided to support it for an extra year. And why? 4 software versions were plenty for the previous phones, and there wasn't really any particular reason to upgrade the 4S. That said, if it could run iOS 9, then why not? I mean, you know, it's always good to give people an extra year of support, right? But the problem is, as said before, the 4S can't run iOS 9, at least not very well. At the time when the iPhone 4S received iOS 9, I, like most, thought this was a very good thing, regardless of the performance hit. But what it also did was render the phone nearly unusable for many people, and maybe that sounds like an exaggeration, but no phone should be as slow as the 4S is, especially no iPhone. Apple was even hit with a lawsuit claiming that they crippled the iPhone 4S with iOS 9. Okay, so going off patterns, Apple didn't really need to let the 4S get the update. Most people are expecting it not to, and surely they knew iOS 9 would slow down the 4S, right? Well, the 4S did have Apple's first dual-core processor in the A5 chip, and so in theory, it was able to run iOS 9. And I mean, they weren't wrong, it could run it, albeit poorly, and so it's possible that the 4S getting iOS 9 was thought to be a fine idea. And maybe things just kind of slipped through the cracks with Apple being ignorant to the real situation. Mind you, this is really giving Apple the benefit of the doubt here, as I find it hard to believe they didn't know that this would happen. They are known for extensively testing everything, but let's say it was a mistake and Apple soon realized after they, updated everybody to iOS 9, maybe they shouldn't have given the 4S the update. What are they gonna do? They can't exactly go back after that. Sure, they could make it possible to downgrade to iOS 8, and that would be awesome. I wish they would, but that's more un-Apple-like than it is to kill an iPhone. So the best option for Apple at this point would be to release another update to fix performance issues like they did with the iPhone 4 when it struggled with iOS 7. Yeah, there were updates and they might have helped a bit, but Apple never really did an update solely focused on performance and fixing their mistakes, and that was kind of disappointing. It's short short-sighted and suspicious looking. Perhaps Apple really were just trying to get people to upgrade to a new phone. One thing Apple does right is keep people supported for years and years. Android does not. Even Google, who makes Android, does not support their own phones as much as Apple does. But when the update comes at the cost of a severe performance hit, getting that extra year of support just doesn't make sense. The iPhone 4S came out in 2011. Let me give you some context here. 2011. Right now, the minimum required version for most apps is iOS 9. What does the iPhone 4S run? iOS 9. That's crazy. I started my first year of middle school, grade 6, in 2011. Yeah, I know I'm young. The idea that a phone from 2011 can still run most apps from the App Store in 2018, my senior year of high school, that's just insane and honestly unnecessary. Apple doesn't need to support a phone for that long. It's cool that they did, but they just don't need to. Apple really should have stopped the updates at iOS 8. iOS 8.4.1 was fairly stable for the most part, and it was very secure with a jailbreak that just recently came out, or relatively recently came out, all these years later, and apps were supported on iOS 8 up until September. The 4S doesn't perform amazingly on iOS 8, but it's totally acceptable, especially when you compare it to iOS 9. So what am I saying here? Well, yeah, sure, if the phone can run the update, then give it to it, but if it can't, then don't. Apple has many reasons to keep people supported, the biggest two being security as well as unity among their platform. They like all of their products and everybody using their products to more or less have the same experience. It makes it much easier for them as a company, and from their standpoint, it does make sense. And typically, it is a good thing for the consumer, but it hurts consumers in this case, and it never should have happened. I'm not really angry per se about this. I don't know how this is all coming off to you, but I'm just kind of disappointed with Apple for this. Apple is the company, or was the company, that made products that just worked, and I think they forgot it with the release of iOS 9. Again, it is very impressive that Apple supported the 4S for so long. It just did not have enough RAM. Compared to the iPhone 5 and 5C, both of which just got their last update with iOS 10. Yes, they got 5 software versions like the 4S, but they could also run iOS 10 without too much issue. They didn't really take much of a performance hit. So I do think that Apple should keep increasing the lifespan of their hardware, especially as technology progresses further and further, but only if the hardware can keep up with the software. I'm not saying the 5S shouldn't get iOS 12 or that Apple shouldn't update their phones. If iOS 12 isn't any slower than 11, bring it on. But if it is, please let the 5S die off in peace, keeping things faster and simpler for its users who don't need to upgrade. When people realize their phones are no longer supported, they will slowly move on and eventually buy a new iPhone. There's no point in trying to force them to by slowing down their phones. And I'm not saying Apple's necessarily doing that, but I do think what they're doing is not exactly consumer friendly, at least in context of the 4S. If it works for the iPhone 5S like it worked for the 5 and 5C, then awesome, I'm all for it. I think Apple just kind of could have done a better job here. In the very least, they should have made iOS 9 just run a little faster on the 4S, or offered some tips and tricks for 4S users to speed up the experience. Like, they don't tell you about turning off background app refresh or reduce transparency or reduce motion or any of that. They're just kind of buried away in settings. So anyway, again, it's super impressive that Apple updated it that long, but I think they really should have stuck it on iOS 8. Luckily, in the case of the iPhone 4S, if you're stuck on it, then you do have a few options. It's extremely easy to downgrade to iOS 6, and if you'd like to see how, I'll link a video I did in the description down below. It's crazy easy. Apple just recently let you do this, and I don't know why they did, but I'm very glad they did. It's also possible to downgrade to iOS 8 without much trouble, and if you go to iOS 6, it'll actually pop up as an over-the-air update. But if you guys would like a full video for me to explain how to do it, let me know in the comments down below. And my voice is getting tired, so I think I'm done talking for now. What do you all think? I'm really curious. Make sure you let me know in the comments down below. I already know a lot of people aren't going to be happy with me for this video, and that's fine. But I didn't want to beat around the bush or, lie to you all and say, it's not too bad. It's pretty bad, I think, when you compare it to other iPhones on their last version of software. So I figured I'd tell you guys how I see it. If you disagree, that's fine. Again, let me know what you think. Leave a like on this video if you found it interesting. Subscribe if you're interested in tech stuff, because that'd be pretty cool of you. And consider following me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, direct links down below. With all that being said, and without further ado, I am Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.